your field goal distribution, that's another thing as well, though I think everyone pretty much has that figured out at this point, but you still want to try to generate the good shots.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. There's one guy who maybe hasn't figured it out yet. We'll talk about him right at the end, I think.
All right, welcome on everyone to one of our favorite Hollinger and Duncans. We're going to begin our coach rankings with the top of the league. Those of you who are watching on YouTube, we'd love to get a like or a subscribe or a comment or tell your friends, whatever you can do to boost our profile. And if you're not watching on YouTube, you're missing that John is coming to us courtesy of the Red Son of Krypton right now.
It is the
right,
black hole, the black hole sun, because I am in the grunge capital today.
Yeah, you're getting more sun than anyone in Seattle is going to get for months right now.
Yes.
All right. Well, what makes a good coach?
What makes a good coach? It's actually several jobs at once. Which what makes it challenging and was why they get fired a lot. You have to have a plan for the course of the game itself. You have to be able to prepare your team. You have to be able to motivate your team. You have to be able to understand the politics and the feelings of the locker room. You need to be able to manage not just the current game, but the season, so that the players make it through the season. You need a plan to help your players get better, especially your younger players. You need to do all that while coordinating with a front office and ownership who may not always agree with you about everything. And you need to do that in ways that don't burn the house down. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of tactical, there's a lot of political, and then there's a lot of just grind too, of just, going through the film each day. And it's, it also has become a little bit more of a CEO job too, where you're delineating tasks among your staff, and you have to do that effectively or you will just get swamped.
No, that's a great point that you've got, 10-person staffs or whatever you want to call it now that you have to delegate to, and both hiring those people, trusting them, working with them. That's something that, when you had a coach and an assistant wasn't as big of a deal.
Yeah. I think selecting a staff is something that really gets underrated. And I think the best coaches have realized that they can't do it themselves and that they need the right people around them, and not just their buddies, but the actual right people. And I think some coaches who have gotten better over the years have realized that on their own as well. And it's just, you can't compete otherwise these days.
Yeah. And I think we've seen this with Michael Malone. We've seen it with Tom Thibodeau, both being out of a job this year, that the sort of combative old school coach, I mean, there's certain people that fit into that archetype, and that there are advantages to that, right? Usually those guys can be short-term turnaround artists. They can get their teams to play really hard, but there is, I think, that mindset can really infect so much of what you're doing. I mean, if you go back to like the quintessential example, that would be Mark Jackson in his waning days with the Warriors, where he's creating this atmosphere of distrust, not trusting his assistants, thinking that they're trying to undermine him, and instead of everyone pulling in one direction. And so there's this defensiveness, whether it's with the referees, whether it's with your own organization, whether it's with the media. I think that kind of an attitude is something that front offices are just less and less into now, because it just has to be collaborative. It needs to be collaborative with player development. And if you're, as a coach, are coming in, and I think maybe it's not a surprise that Tom Thibodeau came up under Jeff Van Gundy and Pat Riley, and then Michael Malone is the son of a coach, where there's this feeling that you're sort of on an island, nobody is supporting you. Look out for yourself. Look out for your one loss record so you don't get fired. That attitude more and more is getting you fired.
The league has really changed that way. It's a much more front office driven league than it used to be. Whereas, the opposite extreme would be like English soccer, where it's all coach driven. And the NBA, I think, was more of a coach driven league than it is now. It has definitely evolved. Even in the time since I joined the Grizzlies front office in 2012, it has evolved more in that direction. So yeah, like if you can't play nice in the sandbox, you're just not going to survive that long.
So in terms of evaluating a coach, I mean, I think that's part of the job. We can throw in player development as something else, the lineups, the player usage. Are you just filling out the bars on these lineups? What's your offensive system? What's your defensive system? Does it make sense for the personnel? How hard your team plays. I mean, that's probably the number one thing that you have to look at as coach. That's like the sine qua non for a coach. We talked about locker room harmony. I mean, I definitely downgrade guys who are their star player is coming out and saying things like, "Oh, we just weren't that organized." that type of stuff. Yeah. The late game stuff obviously is huge. And then for those who get into the playoffs, and we don't have a great crop of very experienced playoff coaches at this point in time. But I mean, that's one of the biggest things. If you can't really be, a top 5 coach, in my opinion, if you haven't been successful in the playoffs. That's really tough to do. I'll throw a few others out there too. I like teams that get system buckets where you're really, you're throwing a pass to someone right under the basket, getting a wide open 3 because of something that the coach drew up, utilizing the gravity of his personnel. And then statistically, transition defense. If your transition defense sucks, that's a big no-no for me among a coach. Transition offense is becoming more and more important. And so I think if your transition offense is good, some of it's personnel driven, but I think a lot of it is coach driven as well. I think you could see that with like JB Bickerstaff in Detroit, for example. You could see it with Billy Donovan in Chicago. Your field goal distribution, that's another thing as well, though I think everyone pretty much has that figured out at this point, but you still want to try to generate the good shots.
Yeah. There's one guy who maybe hasn't figured it out yet. We'll talk about him right at the end, I think.
Yeah. Next week, you mean?
Yeah.
There's a couple of coaches. Maybe we should just do a 3rd episode just because they don't deserve to be in the same episode as any of the other coaches.
Like the relegation bracket.
Yeah. One other thing too, I think, is the possession game is something that so I would say really that coaches have more of an influence now because there's just an understanding of more tools in the toolbox, more ways to help your team be good other than just, hey, we have all these great offensive players who are going to make a bunch of shots and we have, a bunch of guys who have length. I mean, you can just play harder, you can play faster, you can dominate the boards, you can crash the offensive glass, but still be able to get back. So I think there are a lot of really interesting levers that coaches can push that really, I mean, that they could have been pushing them, but it wasn't done as often. A few years ago, like forcing turnovers, people are very focused on that now in a way maybe that they weren't before. So, all right, then. Tier 1, number 1, who you got?
Tier 1. I have 4 coaches in my tier 1. All 4 of them have won championships. I'm staying with Erik Spoelstra at number 1 until someone convincingly knocks him off the block. I still think Miami does a great job on player development, on maximizing what they have, on keeping everything. I mean, I know there was the Jimmy Butler shit last year, but generally they have everybody rowing in the same direction. There's total partnership between the coaching staff and the front office. And I think he's been able to reinvent himself at multiple junctures. So I'm still sticking with him in the number 1 spot. I don't think it's quite as clear cut as it was maybe a couple years ago. And I still think, like, in terms of like guys who overachieve in the playoffs, like he's got to be right up there.
that last part I think is the strongest part of Erik Spoelstra's argument, and I don't think I'm gonna go with him number one this year. I did have him number one last year. I had a couple other
Okay.
guys in that tier. I just think the regular season success has not been at the level that it's needed to be. And sure, you can say that the personnel hasn't been great, but have they really, since they in the regular season, since the 23 season, have they exceeded the quality of their personnel in the regular season? I would say probably not.
That's probably fair.
I mean, especially in a league when so few teams are trying. If you're not getting much above, 42, 44 wins, I mean, Bam Adebayo even had this great quote about like, we don't want to, I think it was like, we don't want to be in the fucking play-in again, basically.
Yeah.
But
see you in the ATL, Bam.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Actually, 23 even was not a good regular season for them either. That was the year they were the AC. So yeah, the 22 is the last time they had a good regular season in Miami. So yeah, I think that now should they be winning 50 games? I don't know. I mean, it's really like getting from 43 to 50 wins is pretty difficult in the league these days because you can get gifted 41 wins simply by trying and not being totally destroyed by injuries. But then getting those next few is difficult. But, I mean, like the Orlando Magic have had a 48 win season in the last couple of years, right? Like that. I want to see that from Miami Heat.
The Sacramento Kings have had a 48 win season.
They were the 3 seed that year. That's amazing. Mike Brown is number 2 on my list. Okay. So actually, why don't you go ahead? Tell me the other 3 guys that you had in this group, and then we can debate among them.
I think that's a good idea because I was debating in my head among these guys: Rick Carlisle, Joe Mazzulla, Mark Daigneault.
Yeah, Carlisle is something that you've always been higher on than me, and I've had no choice but to come up to where you're at this point. So yeah, he would have to be in my top 4. I mean, particularly after last year's playoffs, whether it's the crazy comebacks, whether it's the system that they implemented where they moved the ball so quickly, playing beautiful basketball, by the way. Rick Carlisle's team's not known for that in Dallas, but I think that was more a function of his playing with 2 very deliberate stars and
and not known for that in Detroit. I mean, right?
Well, yeah, that was that was not too.
Or his first tenure in Indiana, for that matter.
Yeah, well, no one was exactly playing the beautiful game at that point. So, yes, I think, and there's still like the irascibility component of Carlisle, and you do wonder. Like, I think he's in the perfect situation where he came in with the most gravitas in the organization. He's got some personnel control as well. I mean, I think he's had conflict with organizations before in the front office a little bit. And he's one of these coaches who's like always, ironically enough, that he was replaced by Jason Kidd, but that who always seems to be like kind of angling for more power. And like, he just is, he's not someone where like maybe he's in lockstep with the organization, but that's only if he has enough power to really be kind of dictating some things as well. So I think that's why I would probably have him below Joe Mazzulla and Mark Daigneault. But I also think you could probably point to him as like a better playoff adjuster than those guys. Also, the Pacers have not really had a great regular season under him. I think even there have been moments to me where the defense is disappointed. And I mean, I think he kind of knew the assignment this year, especially when they got all the injuries, but they shouldn't have been as bad as they were at times this year. I think that again is better for the organization, but still so I do think I would have Rick a little bit below these guys. And again, I think the criteria here that we're using, which we probably should have said earlier, is essentially who would you want to be the coach of basically any team, at random in the next 5 years. And I think we could put a premium on that team being a good team, but you're looking for someone like there are a lot of situations I think in which Rick Carlisle would not really be an appropriate choice. Whereas I think Joe Mazzulla, Mark Daigneault, I would probably feel comfortable about them in most situations. So let's talk about the Daigneault and Mazzulla, and then we can put them in a final order here. What have you thought of Joe Mazzulla this season?
Oh, he's done a brilliant job, right?
Yeah.
I mean, nobody
Brilliant.
expected this team to be anywhere close to where they are. And I think the player development successes in Boston with Kada, with Baylor Shireman, who looked like nothing last year, right? And now he's like guarding Tyrese Maxey and shooting threes 5 feet behind the line and getting tap out rebounds. Jaylen Brown, I think he's found a comfort level and a way to use him. He's been able to toggle Pritchard into different roles very effectively. And the overall there's a kind of Celtics way, right? Where they're gonna shoot a ton of threes, they're gonna play a certain way, and it's really effective and really hard to guard.
Yeah. I would say that he's answered a lot of questions. I still had him pretty high in the last couple of years, but to me, he's answered a lot of questions this year. I mean, one of those was, can he do it without 5-out spacing? Yes, absolutely. And obviously without Jason Tatum too, they've rejiggered the offense. Like you said, they're still shooting a lot of threes, but they're generating them in different ways. They're doing a lot of pick and roll, lots more ball movement in the half court, more pace to the offense in the half court, less isolation, although they still are creating good isolations for their good isolation players. Then they've really adapted in terms of attacking the offensive glass with some of their wings. You mentioned Jordan Wall should be another guy that they've really developed. Luka Garza, they got a lot out of him. Uga Gonzalez, who's a rookie. I mean, that was another thing where I'm like, all right, guys who are not the perfect Celtic archetype of 5-out, everyone can shoot, everyone can switch. Can he still be effective with a group that doesn't check all those boxes? And the answer is a very emphatic yes. Certainly has hit the right emotional group or note for this group this season. I would say I have two concerns about Mazzulla.
Okay.
One is he's lost 2 playoff series in which his team was heavily favored. That's always a concern.
New York last year, and then
Miami in 23.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, going down and lost them in like very kind of spectacular imploding fashion, going down 2-0 to at home and 3-0 against Miami. And it did seem like there are moments, and I would put a little bit of this on Jason Tatum as well, because he's a little bit more into holding the ball, slowing things down. But there are moments where the offense did look stagnant, where it looked like they didn't have that. The only prescription was, let's play more Celtic basketball. Like, no, we're gonna fucking shoot these threes. Fuck you. And like, I mean, yeah, I get it, like sticking with your principles, and I think that's largely a good idea, but also like that has burned them, like that's made them vulnerable to upsets a couple of times. So that would be one thing
this year too. Yeah.
Now they don't really have a point guard who's going to push the ball up, but so that'd be one thing. And then I think the other thing would be, I'm not sure how well. Like, he does seem like kind of a little bit of a weird personality.
You think?
I don't know how much of a persona that really is. I mean, but he is like a little crazy. Certainly it's been sustainable for this group so far, and they've bought into it. You just wonder how many circumstances he could fit into. Like, I mean, this is sad that this is part of the analysis, but like, if he had to go to Utah and tank, like, would he have the temperament to do that? Like, would he really be aligned? It's been great for a team that's been trying to win all the time. So, but yeah, I mean, he's clearly to me in the top 4. It's just those are some concerns that I have.
Yeah, this is not a profession for the well-adjusted.
You say that every year. I always remember you say that. Yeah. Unlike basketball media, where we're all just totally normal. Yeah,
of course. But Yeah, so you're gonna see some quirks, especially in the in the elite guys. But yeah, the the playoff thing, I hadn't been weighing that as heavily because he did get the ring the other year, but you sort of convinced me that maybe I should be, and maybe he should be at the back half of this group probationally until we see what happens this postseason.
Yeah.
I
I'm
think
not
I
sure that
think
I even would have him in the back half of this group, but
really,
it does. And even in 24 too. I mean, they won one real series in that playoffs,
yeah,
and they did it in dominating fashion. Even I guess the other thing I would point to too with him, if you want to talk about the playoff collapses, also just collapses within games where
hmm
I mean
yeah,
even in well, yeah, I guess that was the Udoka year. So never mind, 22, and they almost blew that game 7 with like a 10-point lead. Again, maybe some of this could be player driven, but
right. It's
uh,
been it's
you
been the
know,
personality of the team since before Mazzulla took over. Yes.
I mean, didn't they blew 20-point leads basically in both games, 1 and game 2 against New York?
Yeah.
They almost actually blew a 20-point lead in the fourth quarter of game 3 against Dallas. That really could have changed that series too.
hmm hmm
So that's I do think again, and maybe that goes back to, they just throw up the threes and there's variance there. Though most people to look at that haven't found that there's really that much more variance for teams that shoot a ton of threes. Um, yeah, I mean, to me, it really is not even so much shooting the threes. It's just that at the end of games, they've gotten into just like hold the ball, squeeze the
Oh,
air out of it,
yeah.
don't
Yeah.
start until there's 6 seconds on the shot clock mode.
hmm hmm
Let's talk about Daigneault now. Clearly in the top 4 to me. He's a made man now, won a championship. How would
Yeah.
you assess his performance since we talked about him last time?
I think he's extremely consistent. I think they never have any issues over there. Player development has been really good. They're willing to experiment and try different stuff. I do think, they learn some things about themselves, let's say in the postseason and about their offense and ways things can get a little sticky there, right? That they maybe could work on. We'll see what that looks like when they have a full contingent of guards, which they basically have never had this season. Uh, Defensively, I think he does a really good job. I think he's pretty smart about managing in game, about designing plays out of timeouts, about coming up with sort of different strategic wrinkles. I don't know if he's quite on like Rick's level with that stuff, but I think he's really good. Uh, and then I think his even keel is a real asset.
Yeah, that latter point I think is an important because they were down 2-1 in and had terrible collapses in both the Pacers series and the Nuggets series, and they were able to respond. And so, yeah, I mean, there were some things that he did in those playoffs that were really important. Obviously, Alex Caruso on Jokic in Game 7 was something that was, I think, worked out really well. Going to the Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams pick and roll at the end of some of those games, including that Game 4 against the Pacers, which
Yes.
is just overall one of the greatest games I've ever seen in my life, just in terms of the level of both strategy and how hard the teams were playing it in that. Um, so I thought that was good. Yeah, you mentioned the even keel. I think he's Mazzulla like in the sense that, okay, I'm not going to panic. We're going to do what we're going to do. But then I think he also will introduce some more innovations. And he's also always trying to experiment throughout the season, which I think
Yes.
was good. And I think he had a better team, obviously, but he did grow from 24 when I felt like they really diversified the offense, helped that they got Hartenstein as well. But we saw against Dallas in 24, they didn't really have much of an antidote to the Mavs size and like their guard screening and Lou Dort rolling towards the baseline. And so we just didn't
Yeah.
see any of that stuff in uh, the next playoffs. And yeah, they had moments when they couldn't hit a shot and things looked pretty bad. But overall, I think they coached a pretty good playoffs last year. So I guess I mean, what would you and I'll second all you said about the player development, being on the same page with the organization, all that stuff. What would you say is a weakness for him, if anything?
To me, Daigneault's weaknesses are more relative to these other guys. Is he creative? Yes. Is he as creative as Rick Carlisle? Probably not. Is he a good motivator? Yeah. Is he as good as Mazzulla? Probably not. It's these other guys we're comparing him to who have very extreme strengths. And I think Daigneault is probably more broad-based at a really high level. But I'm not sure there are individual things where I think he falls short. Is he good at player development? Yes. Is he as good as Spoelstra? Probably not. So that's the only thing I think where he might suffer in this comparison is just we're comparing 4 really good coaches.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure I would agree that he's not on the level. I mean, I think OKC, we ranked them number 1 in our organization rankings in part because of their awesome player development, which I think he's part of, although they obviously have had a system there for some time. Poku and Dylan Jones, though, no one was gonna get those.
His inability to turn Poku into a superstar. Yeah, we're gonna hold that against him.
As a quick aside, who is Dylan Jones' agent? Like was that just did they just punt a whole draft pick just as an agent favor? I've never been able to understand why they.
Is that your only hypothesis for how that pick happened?
Yeah, and then they just totally dumped him a year later, and then the Wizards also just totally dumped him.
No, that's the amazing part. After 1 year, they were at least smart enough to be like, what the hell were we thinking there? Usually on a first, you at least see a team go 2 years.
Yeah. So, I think I'm going to go with Mark number 1. I think one of the reasons for that is he's built a team up from the depths, right? He's been a good coach even on a tanking team. He also then was willing to tank at the end of those seasons when necessary. I think he handled the Josh Giddey situation reasonably well also there. So I think I probably would go number 1, especially when you consider that he's shown the ability, which we haven't seen from these other coaches, to actually build up a team from the bottom. So I think I'm going to go with him number 1.
I would say, Spoelstra has built up a team from the bottom. He's had teams that were incredibly shitty. And
okay, so what team would that be? I guess they had the team that started 11-30 and finished 30-11 and didn't make the playoffs. I think that was 16-17. But then they just they signed Jimmy Butler in free agency. I guess you could, they Hero and Bam bringing those guys along. Yeah, but they didn't. I think his worst record as a coach is. Yeah, I don't even know what his worst record would be.
No, they had a 16-win season in there, didn't they?
Not with him. I think that was
that still Riley when they had Chris Quinn and those guys playing and went 16 and 16?
Yeah, when they got Michael Beasley. Yeah, I think that was still Pat Riley. I think he might have retired right after that or something. In any event, yeah, I think so. I would probably go Daigneault 1, Mazzulla 2, Spo 3, Carlisle 4. What would be your final order for those 4?
I think you convinced me about Carlisle being number 4. I'm imagining my new team introducing the coach, or my imaginary team. And so
yeah, you're a former executive. Do you think which of these guys would you most want to work with? Do you think that's an interesting question, right?
Yeah. Well, from an executive perspective, yeah. You would say Daigneault for that, probably, Daigneault or Spoelstra, though. And then, you would probably put Rick maybe a little lower.
I would say Daigneault is probably, maybe we said this last year too, probably the most well-adjusted of any coach on this list. I can't say I'm that familiar with Jordan Ott's stylings yet, but
Steve Kerr would probably be the competition, right? Maybe Mike Brown.
Yeah, Steve's a little insane. He's been kind of shooting off at the mouth this year. These Porzingis comments. I don't know what the fuck that was. That was really weird.
Yeah.
Tiago Splitter seems to be like pretty well adjusted. I think. Like actually, like the former players probably are, maybe a little bit more sane. Anyway, we'll get down to there. Yeah, Mike Brown. I think he's like affable, but he also always has this whiff of I'm about to get fired, which, given his history, is probably actually true. So here's where it really gets interesting, and we've had, there's some vet coaches that haven't had great teams this year, but are playoff tested. We've got guys who are, sort of, you could say like young veteran coaches, maybe even look at them as like average veteran coaches whose teams have had a fair amount of success. And then you also have some young guys who are really coming up this year as well. And I think it's going to be fascinating to sort all these guys out, because I try to be early on these guys, particularly the young coaches, but I haven't. A couple of them, you haven't even seen them in the playoffs yet. It's kind of difficult. Yeah. So who is your number 5?
So I had a tier of 4 coaches, all of whom have had a great deal of success. Only one of whom has actually won the championship, though. So in the number 5.
Wait, are you don't short Ty Lue's championship again? You're not going to do that, are you? Or is he?
I shorted his championship again. Yeah, I did.
You did that last year too.
I did that last year too. I keep on forgetting about the one in Cleveland.
Yeah, right. Well, no one in Cleveland's going to forget about that one. They don't have too many.
My next tier, 2 of them have won championships. One got to the finals, and one got to consecutive conference finals. So I have. But I went with Steve at number 5. I just think his skills with people management kind of put him a cut above some of the other guys. I know I went sideways with Kuminga this year, but I think over the larger historical arc, I mean, you look at what he's been able to do with his guys to keep some like kind of difficult personalities, rowing in the same direction. And he has been able to do so. I mean, there's a very distinct style to how Golden State plays, which I think is built around its best player and is basically smart to play that way. So he's the guy I have at the top of this tier. You're around this team more often than I am. So tell me why I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think he still has to be here given the body of work. And there's so much local angst about Steve Kerr, whether it's the Kuminga situation, which I think you would have to argue he hasn't quite handled correctly. And, we'll see whether Kuminga is actually good or not. Now he's had some moments against some tanking teams with the Hawks, but, and like KD didn't seem to love him by the end either. KD doesn't seem to love a lot of people by the end. And he's had lots of ends. But I mean, just last year, they were the 7 seed. They upset the 2 seed and might have made it to the conference finals with a team that's like, honestly pretty under-talented. And, he has gotten, he did integrate Jimmy Butler really well immediately. Obviously, has continued to get a lot out of Steph. Draymond's become a more and more difficult piece. He usually, like, their defense is still good. Even now, even without Butler, even without Steph, like they've been playing like pretty close to 500 ball without Butler and without Steph. And just with like a bunch of depth guys who are playing in the system now. Obviously, it's easier to win games now than it is earlier in the season. That they wouldn't be doing that if it was earlier in the season, but they still have been pretty decent there. And, I thought he coached a pretty good series against the Rockets last year. They solved that zone that was really difficult, that 2-3 zone with the double big lineup. They solved that by Game 7. And so I do think that he's not without flaws by any means. And you do wonder, especially at his age, like, I don't think him coming in to coach the Memphis Grizzlies next year would look very good, right? Like he's not trying to do that shit anymore. Like he's accomplished way too much. Like I don't know whether he's going to stay in coaching. He said he wouldn't leave to go coach another team after this, but like, there's maybe 10 teams in the league max that like he would really be an appropriate coach for at this point in time.
Yeah, I
And,
think that's probably right.
and I do think that there's just like a general fatigue that's set in with him where you could just see just the way that he's talking this year. And so that would be like, right. If you're hiring him to be your coach right now, like that's got to be part of this. Right. But also, if you're just going to grade him on the job that he's been doing, I think this is about where he deserves to be.
Yeah, and I mean that fatigue, I mean, there's a certain amount of years that like some guys are only able to be effective for a couple of years, right? Because there's that fatigue with their message and whatnot. Like the fact that Kerr has
Yeah.
been able to be with these guys for over a decade now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's some real staying power there. We'll see if he's there after this year. Did you interpret that Gui Santos extension as a possible tell of like, oh, that's a Kerr guy, maybe he's back?
No. Although I do think that Steve, my guess would be he's not going to want to go out like this. That I mean, I think he is going to want to ride it out with stuff. I mean, part of it just depends on whether they're able to put together a competitive team next year also. But I think, Draymond stuff, like I think he probably wants to ride it out with those guys. I think maybe if they had another season like last year, that maybe he would feel like that was an appropriate final statement. But I think the way that it's gone this year, Steph's like not even healthy. Like they're at best 50-50 even make the playoffs. They probably won't make the playoffs. I would say that's like, unless Steph's able to come back and be really good again. So I think maybe that means he would stay. I mean, that's a fine contract for Santos. I know you're probably laughing.
You don't think he put his foot down and said it's if Guis, I'm not coming back unless
it's possible. It's possible. So yeah, and I think like he's a really good playoff coach. Like they don't lose playoff series that they're not supposed to lose, and they win a lot of playoff series that they're not necessarily supposed to win.
Yep, and that kept up again last year. Yeah.
They lose play-in games they're not supposed to lose sometimes, but that's a one-game thing.
That's right.
Well, I think I've struggled with Ty Lue a lot. I'm the one who invented the term O2 Lue because he gets down 0-2 in so many series. I do think he's like, because players really seem to love him. He's got the LeBron stamp of approval, but and he's had so many injuries to deal with. I didn't think he covered himself in glory in that playoff series last year. I think they had as much talent, if not more, available than the Nuggets. And I thought they kind of blew game 1. They kind of blew game 4 in that series, and then he didn't have his team mentally ready to play in game 7, and they got completely blown out. So I know he has this resume. I think like I can't really point to anything like this year again. Like he's been awesome, like getting them to start playing again, but they also started 6-21, right? Like that's that's like basically the regular season version.
The regular season version of what he does in the playoffs, right? Yeah. He's like,
so I don't have him in this group. I think if I were if I were, especially for a random, like we saw what happened in Cleveland, where basically he's like asked to play the young guys. He's not like, nah, fuck this, I'm out immediately. Like that's another concern as well. So, I think he's got a lot of friends in the media, and I think that's kind of led to him being slightly overrated. Of like, oh, he's making all these amazing adjustments after he's down 0-2 already, right? Like doing things that he already should have been doing. So,
yeah, that's definitely the biggest critique on him.
So yeah, I'm going to take him out of this group. You had him number 6, though.
I did, but I'm persuadable here. Let me hear who you had at number 6.
That's a great question. There isn't necessarily an obvious candidate here.
No, there is not.
Yeah. I mean, I'll throw a few names out there for you.
Okay.
Chris Finch, just what he's been able to accomplish the last couple of years has to be there.
Yeah.
I would say But now we kind of get into the like, all right, there's guys who have resumes, but I don't know if I like think they're necessarily quite as forward looking as some of these young guys who are coming up, right?
Mhm.
So, Ime Udoka would be someone I would think about there, but
Mhm.
like his crunch time offenses are just terrible. I mean, that's going back to the 22 with the Celtics,
Yep.
and they're totally unable to score in the playoffs last. I mean, they don't have great
Mhm.
offensive players, but still, like their half court offense was abysmal last year in the
Mhm.
playoffs against the Warriors. Um, so and then this year too, like they've really struggled in the clutch, and I think there's like a little bit of the he's kind of got that old school toughness, which I think is great to implement, but I just don't see the creativity on the offensive end for him. Now, I will give him
Mhm.
creativity for the double big lineup, playing zone, the
Yeah.
zone that they played against Steph Curry and the Warriors, admittedly, once they were down 3-1,
Mhm.
uh, was pretty novel. And they basically just made that up on the fly. I'd never really seen that before of like a 2-3 where you're also just, if Steph Curry comes into your area, you're just going to chase him until you can hand him off.
Yeah.
Warriors eventually solved that, but it won them 2 games in that series,
Mhm.
basically. Um, and certainly like the Rockets offensive rebounding, like that's really been on the vanguard. They're doing that even without Steven Adams. So I'm not going to say that he's not without innovation. I just like every Ime Udoka team has just been a chore to watch offensively, even if they do grind out regular season offensive efficiency.
Yeah. And that dates back to when he had more offensive talent than he has now. I understand
Sure.
he has KD in Houston, but they have some real limitations with that with that roster they have right now,
No, that's
especially
true.
with Van Vliet
But
injured.
also he plays into those limitations by maybe he could play Reed Shepard more, right? Like I mean, now
Mhm.
not having Van Vliet, I think that's hurt them some this year. So he's certainly a candidate there. I think he and Fitch have some similarities just in terms of like what their resume looks like. Um, yeah, who else is a candidate up here for you? I really want to talk through it still. I'm not particularly enamored of any of these guys like a clear number 6.
Right.
It seems
So
weird
I'd
to have
say
Kerr in his own tier at 5, but
right. The next so sort of the next 3 guys for me to talk about don't well, I shouldn't even say that. So like Nick Nurse has a championship. He did some amazing stuff in Toronto. I don't think his Philadelphia tenure has been as strong. Um, and like I think he's pretty good, right? But I is he top 8? Like I'm not sure. Kenny Atkinson did a great job in Cleveland last year.
yeah, if we just forget that Pacers series ever happened, he would be
Right?
like the clear number 6 to me.
The Pacers series, I think they've underachieved this year. Um, but
I wouldn't say that necessarily. I wouldn't say that they've underachieved this year, given who's actually been available. I wouldn't necessarily say that, and I think they're rolling now too. I think they're gonna probably be either the 3 or the 4 seed. Like, yeah, they've underachieved to where I thought they would be, but given they
mhm,
basically didn't have Darius Garland for the entire season, they've missed Mobley at separate points as well. Like now that they made these trades, like they're rolling again. So I think it's like like the Lonzo acquisition. Like it's not Kenny Atkinson's fault that Lonzo was shot 24% from 3 this year or whatever it was. A lot of the guy, I mean, and he just had, he's playing Tyrese Proctor a lot. They've developed a lot of guys though under him, like Sam Merrill. JB Bickerstaff started that, of course, like Naquan Tomlin. They've gotten stuff out of him.
Jalen Tyson
Jalen
has come along
Tyson,
in a
yeah.
big
So
way. Yeah.
I think I probably would, especially because he's also been someone who's brought a team up from the depths. I'm probably gonna actually put him here,
Okay. Um,
even though I do have some concerns about like his energy.
mhm. So the other name we got to bring up here, I think, is talk about bringing a team up from the depths. JB Bickerstaff.
Yeah, I mean, certainly his regular season record at this point is pretty much unimpeachable.
Yeah, we just don't have a lot to go on in the playoffs except for the 1 year in Cleveland, right?
I mean, I didn't love his performance last year against the Knicks.
Okay.
Yeah, losing Isaiah Stewart did put a monkey wrench in what their strategy was going to be against Karl-Anthony Towns, but I felt like they just couldn't figure out a way to get Jalen Duren off of Karl-Anthony Towns. And, Tobias Harris would get in foul trouble, right? They'd start off the game that way. They'd be going great. Tobias Harris would pick up a foul, and then it was, all right, well, we'll just put Jalen Duren on him, and then they just would get cooked in that series. And, they also had a couple of pretty ugly fall from behind losses. Like the game 1, they were up by a lot that devolved into a flurry of turnovers. The game 4 was more excusable. Like they focused very much on that as the Tim Hardaway Jr. getting fouled by Josh Hart, and they should have gotten the call. And I agree, but they also kind of blew it at the end of game 6 as well at home. So I think there were just a lot of times as I was going through watching the game, which you don't really, there aren't that many coaches that I feel that way about anymore, where I'm just like, oh, you're making a basic mistake here. And I felt that pretty often in the playoffs last year. And I felt that pretty often in his Cleveland tenure also.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, regular season, you got to be very happy with them. I mean,
right.
So is that, but I mean, I could probably name 15 coaches I would rather have coach in a playoff series than him, at least.
So who did you end up with at number 6?
So I did go with Kenny Atkinson there.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, JB, yes, it's tough, right? Like Lue would be in this next group for me. Finch, JB would be in this next group. Udoka. A couple of guys I wanted to discuss with you.
Okay.
David Adelman. What have you thought of David Adelman?
I think he's done a really good job. I didn't feel comfortable putting him in the top 12 just based on experience. I want to see another cycle, another, full regular season and playoff cycle before I really, get out over my skis here. I've liked what I've seen from him so far, though. I thought his adjustments in the Clippers series and the Oklahoma series were pretty good. I thought he kind of got he took over a very rocky situation and kind of stabilized it right away when he came in. And I think he's done a good job this year with the Nuggets team that has had a lot of injuries and could have easily fallen off when you look at the kind of the quality of the roster behind their starters. And they've held it together. So I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. So yeah, I mean, when I first wrote this up, I had him 14th. I might have him too low as I think about it in my head.
I liked what he did last year in the playoffs as well. I mean, he was getting killed by Harden early in that series. They're able to adjust there. Then Kawhi had that crazy game 2. Everyone's like, oh, Kawhi's back. He's 15 and 9 from the field. They have no one to guard him. Like, they are able to really quell him the rest of that series as well. I mean, they were definitely, after that game 3, it looked like they were totally done. And then I think, so definitely hitting the right emotional note with that team. It wasn't hard to do after all the chaos that they had. And then I thought they did about as well as they could have. I honestly didn't think they were in OKC's class last year, but they stole that one in game 1. Yeah. And they went up 2-1. They really they frustrated OKC, forced them to shoot a lot of threes. I mean, that's really the best you're going to do is just pack the paint. They went to some crazy zone stuff, double teaming, because they don't have anyone to guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and they don't have any rim protection. Like, it's a really bad matchup for them. So I think actually squeezing 7 games out of that series was a nice accomplishment for him. And then this year, it was starting off great. How much of that is that Jamal Murray actually came in shape this year and was back to being Jamal Murray? How much credit does he deserve for that? I am a little concerned about his just complete inability to get anything out of Cam Johnson, even before he got hurt. That Cam Johnson was just wallowing with a -5 usage this entire season has been kind of weird to me.
Yeah.
But they also have been a lot better like the way that they performed without Jokic in that stretch to be over 500 was very
Yeah.
impressive, I would say.
Yeah,
So
100% agree.
yeah, I mean, I think
You
he's
get
and he just is someone I think he's hitting the right notes in press conferences emotionally. I think he's just has a very good process as well. So yeah, I don't know if I could put him top 10, but he is kind of right in that group for me. Who else do we need to talk about
developmental
that's in this range?
success with Peyton Watson, right?
Sure. Yeah, in a way that Michael Malone did not succeed, I would say.
And I would
Part of that has
say,
just been due to injuries. He was forced to play him, but nonetheless.
and the man who reinvented the alphabet, Spencer Jones, would fall in that category as well, right?
Yes. Oh man, yeah. What fraternity was he in? Right? He's making up Greek letters out there.
Yeah.
Let's see. So a couple other guys that I would maybe think about.
Okay.
Well, I actually have a number of young coaches that this time next year I think we could be thinking are higher, and I'm sort of like, man, should I just be trying to be early on these guys?
Mm-hmm.
Certainly one of those would be Charles Lee, who just wasn't really given a chance
Mm-hmm.
last year because they were so injured. LaMelo was out. We kind of had him in the bottom 5, but it was like basically an incomplete of a
Yeah.
year. I mean, I think it's been unbelievable this year.
How about Charlotte being 16th in defense with that roster? When you looked at them, and they looked like a total donut team with LaMelo Ball and Con Knippel as your starting guards, and you're 16th in defense right now. I'd say that's an accomplishment, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I was predicting, and like no really like great perimeter defenders, and like a bunch of rookies too. He's like getting amazing stuff out of these rookies. That's been incredible, and I also love his offense too. That they've just gotten so much out of all these guard screening actions. You have they've done different stuff with Diabate and Kalkbrenner. Like Kalkbrenner, they hang him out more towards the baseline. Diabate maybe can set some more screens and make some passes on the move out of pick and roll. But having these 3 guys who can all screen for each other, like getting LaMelo Ball to like set some screens. That's like not something I think people were really looking at, right? Khan, all those guys being able to dribble, pass, shoot, screen, cut. And it's been really difficult to deal with. Also, they started 4-14, and he's been able to maintain the right emotional note. I mean, even with LaMelo, like there's sort of this feeling of like, do you remember LaMelo Ball? There was a report that he would welcome a trade.
Yes.
This year. You remember that?
Yeah.
That's, I mean, how far away does that feel?
Yeah.
Right now. So certainly, and then the other thing I think that makes me a little bit more comfortable with Lee as far as like what he can be in the future and even in a playoff setting is he just has so much playoff experience, both with the Bucks and the Celtics, that I think there's more to what he could be than, someone like Jordan Ott, who I also have been very impressed by. But I think like having that level of championship experience as an assistant does at least make me feel better about what he could be in the playoffs.
Yeah. Charlotte will have a winning record if they beat Boston tonight.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch that game actually. So I don't know. I like how high can you get with him though? Is the question.
Yeah. I'd say he and like Mitch Johnson would be the other one, right?
Yeah.
Where we haven't seen them face their toughest tests yet, but just the fact that they've been able to get a team to this point is notable. I mean, the Spurs look amazing this year. They've had some real development success stories. I mean, I think they continue to kind of figure out ways to bring Dylan Harper and Carter Bryant along, even as they're in this, race for the second spot, which I think is ahead of schedule for them. Obviously, Victor is a huge part of it, but he's also, he's figured out how to divvy up the ball between Castle, Fox, and Victor and do it a way that keeps everyone happy. He still has Keldon Johnson in this kind of high usage role off the bench where he's thriving. So I think there's a lot actually that's there for him to juggle that he's managed to do pretty effectively.
Yeah, I think so. He is also someone where I'd say selecting the staff and trusting the staff has been important. Like them getting Sean Sweeney, I think, was maybe the most important assistant coach hire of the offseason. I see a lot of some of the same hallmarks that we saw in Dallas, in San Antonio. And yeah, another guy who certainly hits the right emotional note for his team. And they've added a lot of interesting elements. And I think like coaching Victor Wembanyama is hard, right? Like he's the limitless number of things that he can do. I think it makes things a little bit more difficult. And then also these three guards, Fox, Castle, and Harper, who can't really shoot that well, like getting all those guys to work together. I think his idea of taking Harrison Barnes out of the starting lineup, going with Julian Champagny has been really smart. I think that's another thing that's helped to mitigate the lack of shooting, mitigate opponent strategies of not putting their center on Victor, which I think, because that's really the matchup that they prefer. I think also too, you'll remember, like, I think it was Victor's rookie year when he was playing the four more, they wanted him like they're defending more on the perimeter. And well, Victor certainly can do that and certainly can switch. I think it's actually been smart to not fall into that too much. Like they've got guys who can get over screens at the point of attack, and having him in a very deep drop just because he affects things at the rim so much, even though he can do this other stuff. I think that especially during the regular season, just be like, nah, you're just never going to get anything at the rim in the half court. That I think has been the right strategy with him. So again, just no idea what he's going to be like as a playoff coach. We are going to find out. It's going to be fascinating. The Spurs will be the most interesting team in the playoffs this year. I can't wait for it. And there's certainly plenty of institutional knowledge with the Spurs as well. I wouldn't have him maybe quite as high as Charles Lee, just because I think I can point to a few more specific things that Lee is doing and with a less talented team. But and also just that he's got a little more experience as well at a high level as an assistant. But yeah, I mean, Johnson's been great this year for sure.
Yeah, and I think his job is in some ways more challenging because of the Victor issue that you bring up. And honestly, getting Fox midstream, a guy who has, like when you get a guy like who has that certain status in the league, that can be really challenging, especially for a young coach.
And also how well they played without Victor in that stretch too, I think has been. And then he comes back, he's on a minutes limit. They're bringing him off the bench for a while. That actually was working pretty well. So I mean, it's been pretty much unimpeachable what he's done so far this year. Last year, maybe not, but obviously they were tanking down the end of the year. So he'll be a very interesting one to monitor over the course of the year. I mean, should we? I guess I also got to still shout out Will Hardy. I think again, it's just we know what the situation has been here now for him for quite some time. He's been on board with what the organization is doing. I thought actually his strategy against the Nuggets, whom they almost beat the other day, like you could see him actually throw something out where he's like, no, we're gonna actually take this game seriously, right? So they just had. Like they started Elijah Harkless and had him basically just like stick his butt into Nikola Jokic's thighs and not let him run around the entire game. And, they have at least been protecting the rim a little bit more this year. Still, the transition defense is pretty terrible. But I think his offense is easily one of the more creative in the league. His team has consistently been above board on that. I think he just believes in the right things coaching wise, as well as far as like what actually wins basketball games. So I'm very excited to see him next year. But anytime that the Jazz have tried, they've punched like way above their weight, and he's just getting kneecapped by the end of the season.
Yeah, it's just tough because it is year 5 and we still have no idea what Will Hardy looks like
true?
coaching
a game
year. Coaching a game that actually matters. I'm sorry, it's year 4. I take that back. It is year 4. And we still have no idea what it looks like with him coaching a game that actually matters.
What about the NBA Cup? Does that matter? Yeah.
Does he actually, have they won any NBA Cup games ever?
I think they actually had one game where like they could have maybe gone to like 3-0 in the group, like one of those years, but they had just played like two terrible teams and then like they got blown out by the Lakers. I think that might have been like the first year.
That was the highlight.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I guess we should, and then the one other guy I would shout out here is like maybe even a candidate would be Jordan Ott. You talk about what you've seen from him this year.
Yeah, I mean, Phoenix has completely overachieved, and they've done it with, I mean, they're beating teams with effort, like very, very clearly. And he's leaned into a lot of these kind of high effort guys who have some limitations, and he's made it work. I mean, Dylan's having a career year, but these guys like Jordan Goodwin, Iguodaro, Ryan Dunn, like, not like crazy talented players, but he's figured out how to work them into his system really effectively. I think he's done a good job toggling back and forth between Williams and Iguodaro situationally. Gotten a big year from Grayson Allen, and managed like a team with basically a bunch of 6'5" guards and figured out kind of roles for everybody.
Yeah. Also, like forcing a ton of turnovers. Was shocking to me. If I had to rank where I thought the Phoenix Suns would be in forcing turnovers at the start of the season, I would have been like, oh yeah, they're going to be towards the bottom. They've been towards the bottom. Now that was maybe shorting their personnel a little bit, but yeah, just adding that pressure, speeding up the game, and also coming from Cleveland, which I think was a good system, a very analytically inclined system as well. I'm pretty impressed with what I've seen from Jordan Ott so far, and hopefully Phoenix will make it into the playoffs so we can get a little bit better of a view of what he's going to do. Hopefully they'll get Devin Booker and Dylan Brooks back and not just be totally road graded. But I mean, I don't want to put him in the top 10 just based on 2/3 of a year, but it'd be hard to imagine what he could have done to be more impressive than what we've seen so far. All right, so let's wrap this up here and put these guys in an order for what we already have. I'm at 6. Have you given me your number 6?
No. I think I'm going to go with Finch at 6.
Okay.
And then I think I'm going to go Atkinson 7, Lue 8, Udoka 9, Bickerstaff 10.
Yeah, I think for me it's just too hard to get higher for the guys who are really not don't have that much of a track record yet. So, and Lue has to be in this. I would say Steve and Kenny would be a different tier for me because I thought Kenny was like an obvious number 6. It's maybe an arbitrary distinction, but so yeah, I think Lue, Finch, Udoka, Bickerstaff. I think Will Hardy would be the other guy that I would put there. I've always been higher on him than you.
For me, it's not a question of higher or lower. I just feel like I can't give him his flowers until I see him coach in a game that matters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. He's probably coached maybe 1.5 seasons worth of games that like he's actually tried in. At this point, the sample size seems higher. I mean, a lot of it just is coming back to the way that he coaches, the things that he believes in, just even the stuff that he says in the media. I think he just hits all the right notes as far as what I would be looking for in a coach. So the one thing for those of you media people inside baseball, Will Hardy, you need to be in the press room when he starts his talk on the road, or sorry, at home. Because
at home, you got to be in there.
They will lock the door and not let you
your ass out. Yes.
He does not want to be disturbed. Once I mean, I appreciate him taking his media obligations so seriously, John. Don't you?
Yeah, there was the way that room is set up, I guess it was pretty easy for people to kind of come in like the Kool-Aid man while he was talking. So um so I sort of get it, but
Now it is. I mean, then the Golden State, the press area for coaches is pretty hilarious because it's just a curtain. It's out basically next to the loading dock. So you've got like,
yeah, it's
family
like
of
they set up
players after
like
the
a
game.
if you imagine like a triage medical tent like out in the field, like it's basically
Yeah, yeah,
that's basically the setup for the visiting coach
yeah,
press
yeah.
conference in
Like
Golden State.
like amputees being wheeled in, like people screaming. Like there's like uh forklifts beeping.
Yeah.
There's family of players like whooping it up in the hallway. There's the junior jam squad dance team practicing before the game right outside of there. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, we've seen a lot of coaches just sort of like, also like the lights there are exceedingly bright as well, so I can't really see into the crowd. It's just of reporters and see who's talking to them. Yeah, it's definitely like JJ Redick was like pretty upset that like some like the microphone wasn't working in preseason. Yeah, I mean, like could JJ be in this group, by the way? Maybe we could close on him.
So the two guys, well, there's three guys that I could argue for maybe being this group. One is Mike Brown.
Mhm.
One is JJ, who I think we've seen some good stuff from him. This is his second full season now. I mean, they've overachieved on wins and losses pretty spectacularly in both years.
But is that true this year? I mean, I guess they've had some injuries. Last year, I would completely agree with you.
No, I mean in terms of point differential.
Yeah. I mean, they've been good in close games.
Yeah.
I don't know how much I would say that. I mean, that's actually might be a ding against David Adelman is how bad his team's been in close games this year. But after they were always awesome previously, so that might be something to look at. But yeah, I mean, so they've been good in close games. The defense is what it is, right? Like with the personnel not even being in the top 10 in offense, it's a little concerning, right?
Yeah. I mean, their top three guys have all missed considerable time, and the back end of this roster is bad. But even with the top three together, they haven't been world beaters. So that's the part that probably concerns you a little. But I mean, the back end of this roster is pretty bad.
What do you think of his demeanor?
I think I don't know. There's nothing that's like kind of overtly bothered me. I don't know. He can be a little prickly, but I don't know. There's nothing that's set off to the point that set off like red flags for me or anything. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he is probably the right coach for this group because you probably need someone with LeBron and Luka who's just not gonna take too much shit. Now, I do think Luka, like his crying, his defense, we saw it was going to be a big revenge tour, and Luka, yeah, he's shooting better from inside the arc, but I don't know that he's fixed a lot of his issues necessarily. Like I think it's been totally good. Last year in the playoffs, they really weren't able to score against Minnesota. That was kind of a problem.
Yeah, and then
But
the no bench game in Game 4.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. So I don't know. That was one where I think his emotions can get the best of him at least a little bit in terms of his decision making and being a little bit of a hothead. But I do think he definitely has a very good handle on strategy and just having a modern approach and all that stuff. So I think he's kind of mid-pack at this point. I want to see him with any kind of defensive personnel. Like he also, one thing that he's really been criticized a lot for locally is the Hachimura Aiton with the big three lineup and just like how terrible that's been. And he still like hasn't been able to get out of playing that group. Although again, I like Marcus Smart probably shouldn't be starting both because of his talent and also because he's going to get hurt and wear down. So who exactly did you want him to play? But like you said, it's been it's and also like with LeBron being in his last year and then being hurt at the start of the year. I mean, I guess
there's a lot of tricky politics to manage there,
right?
Without a doubt. Both in terms of managing up, and he's got 2 different owners who he's working for right now, and then dealing with LeBron like that. Yeah, there's a lot to deal with.
All right, then. Well, we will continue this next week, but I fear we must eliminate a team from the playoffs, John.
Okay.
We can make it quick.
Did we already eliminate the 8 teams that eliminated themselves? Was that what we did last week?
We kind of did. We talked about New Orleans last week. So I think it's more just we know the teams that are out, but just if there's one that interests you to talk about among the teams that are pretty much done that we're not going to talk about until the offseason, essentially. I mean, we got Sacramento, Utah, Indiana, Nets, Wizards, Bulls, Mavs, Grizz. There you go. That's your 8 remaining that we still got to talk about. You want to pick one?
If I must. All right, Chicago Bulls.
Sure.
Like kind of resetting around youth, but kind of doing it a little too late too. Like I don't know. Like what are these guys next year, the year after? Like what are we going for here, Chicago?
Yeah, they have all this cap space this year, and are they going to try to make a offer sheet for someone like Peyton Watson? I mean, they desperately need a real 3 on this team. Buzelis seems like a keeper at power forward. They don't have a center.
Nah.
Giddey, I mean, we talked about his limitations on a high level of team. So you really, if you're going to have him and Buzelis, like those are probably really the only guys I look at as a long-term piece. Yeah, maybe like Trey Jones could be a lower end starting point guard, but probably, not somebody who's going to be part of your future or somebody who should be coming off the bench. So they really basically have.
I think you're really happy if Trey Jones and Jalen Smith are your depth guys, right? But you're not building the team around the idea of them. And then there's just kind of
and they're just
a bunch of dudes.
They never find guys at the end of things, right? Like they're two-way spots as like Yuki Kawamura, really, like that's who we're trying to develop here. I thought Bloggable actually wrote a good piece about this, of how they're just not taking the end of the roster seriously, and they never do. Who's the last guy? Someone who is like totally undrafted. I can't recall them finding anyone like that. Dosunmu was pretty good as a 2nd round pick. I think that's really the only guy that's emerged, kind of late for them. So yeah, I guess maybe you try to go get Peyton Watson in free agency, and maybe you sign a center in free agency. But I just, again, like if they had a high draft pick coming, then maybe you'd feel good about it. Noah Sengay it's been a totally lost year for him. I don't think he's someone that you're like counting on. He also plays the same position as Buzelis.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's really, they're just, I mean, if you're going to rank the team that's like least likely to win a championship in the next 10 years, the Bulls are probably number 1.
I might still go Phoenix, but yeah, the Bulls got to be right there.
Yeah. I mean, I guess Phoenix just has like no upside from their draft picks, and Sacramento too. But they could get a superstar this year, I suppose, right?
Which is
less likely for Chicago.
Yeah, Sacramento is just more lack of faith in one particular person, I think.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing about it. Yeah.
The way this is laid out. Yeah, it's just how do they get good from here? This draft is loaded. They'll have a high pick, although again, they should have tanked before the season even started, right?
They blew that. They could have traded these guys like White and Dosunmu. They could have actually gotten a first for those guys.
Yeah, or for Caruso.
Yes. I suppose, right? Unfortunately, the Thunder didn't have any to trade them. So yeah, I guess, I mean, they're so far away. All right, even if you want to say Josh Giddey is a keeper, which I don't even really believe on a high level team, but all right, fine, you call him a starter. Modest Buzelis, all right, I'll call him a starter. Like maybe at the squint, he's got all-star upside. Like he's shooting the ball pretty well this year. You know, he might have to throw a pass every now and again, but like he's got a lot of athleticism. Like I could see, certainly he's a piece you feel solid building around. Like, okay, we have our power forward of the future. Dillingham and Ivy, I mean, to me are like, if they turn into solid bench guards, that's probably above median for both those guys at this point in time. Certainly neither, I don't perceive either of them as having all-star upside.
Yeah.
So you're just got like, they just have so much work to do, as they always have. But I mean, now they do have 8 billion second round picks from their deals. Yeah.
Which
all
they
right,
can
then I think we
they can then sell for like $30 million.
All right, then let's pack it in here. We'll be back next week on Dunc'd On Prime. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you all next time.